Peace, good people. Um, so there's some interesting dialogue going on right now surrounding Bud Crawford. You guys may be well aware of it because it's kind of circulating the social media platforms right now. Just Bud basically in the question of him continuing within the sport, if he'll decide to remain, if he'll rematch with EJ. All types of things are going on right now. But for me, it seems like Crawford is in what I would say is a curious emotional limbo right now regarding his next moves, and particularly with EJ. He, of course, had an emphatic win over Spence/July. And ever since then, pretty much, as you know, we, the boxing world, know, everybody's been just in a frenzy about when we could expect a rematch. There seems to have been a lot of back and forth immediately after the bout in July about when it was to take place. Some people thought it would take place back in December, and then we heard speculations that it would possibly take place in February. That's obviously not happening, and it just seemed to have been pushed further and further away from the line that was drawn, or at least the idea of a line that was drawn. It seems to have not materialized in any particular type of way. So that's kind of left the boxing world a little bit in upheaval. And I'm not sure if he is losing interest in this. I guess I'll get into that in a minute. Let's just start here. So after the win, everything was fine, and he'd been celebrating and had parades and all of this, and really just enjoying the newfound, I would say, sense of stardom that he's had because of the major feat and accomplishment that he managed to achieve with his win, and the style in which he devastated Earl Spence and outclassed him in that performance. But even though he had won, and right after that fight, he seemed to be good in getting the accolades that he says were kind of withheld from him for some time. And, he had been enjoying it, even with that success, newfound success, and, kind of celebratory energy that he had been surrounding himself in. He seemed yet and still to, express a sense of rancor and resentment for fans and critics alike, who basically he still felt didn't appreciate and didn't value his abilities. So that's something that had been going on since the fight. And as of recently, I guess he's still holding on to such sentiments, because he recently took to his social media and yet again expressed claims that the public does not appreciate greatness when they see it. And he also insinuated in that statement that he may have one more fight to give. Something to that magnitude. I'm paraphrasing, but you should check it out on his Twitter. And that's a little bit mind-blowing to me, because an emphatic win is saying a lot. You didn't just win that fight. You completely dominated it. And in boxing language, from our view, the onlookers can see it and define it as a shutout performance. From round 2 on, it was just all Crawford, And I don't know if he feels that because Spence is a bigger draw and is a bigger name, and so he had a bigger cry of disapproval when he won, because EJ is the is the superstar. And so there was a lot of feedback, a lot of thundering and roaring um, surrounding questions people had as to why and what led EJ to perform the way that he did that night. And I guess that he feels like those fans and onlookers who were questioning and proposing that something had to have been wrong with EJ. I think that was a blow to his ego because he wanted to be the all-encompassing, all-assuming reason, that he was just the dominant fighter. That just managed to overshadow and overpower EJ that night, which is understandable. And you did your thing. And if you look at the other video about, I think I did about EJ and giving credit to Bud and all of that, the credit was given. But that doesn't mean that something was not severely wrong from an anomaly standpoint with EJ. And that's something that isn't just speculation. In fact, it's something that EJ happened to confirm for himself. So he's saying that we don't appreciate greatness when we see it, and he may just have one fight because basically we're not good enough or deserving enough of his continuance in the sport, pretty much. And I think that's a smite to boxing fans. And I'm not sure how I feel about that one yet for Mr. Crawford. Real talk, Earl Spence was the most significant win of his career. There is no win on his resume that is more paramount to what was accomplished versus EJ. I would say maybe Cal Brook was a really, tough, he was an ex-champion, really tough competitor and stuff like that. But by the time he fought Cal, he was a broken man, ironically by the hands of EJ. EJ completely demolished and decimated him. And this is while Cal Brook was a gleaming champion. It completely broke that man. And, the bouts thereafter were the results of what he had faced in the ring with EJ. And of course, the prowess of the other fighters he had fought with. And so by the time he reaches Crawford, not to say that Kel was worthless, but he was certainly a damaged warrior, a wounded warrior. So I would say Cal Brook will probably be, caliber-wise, the next one on the list of note. But EJ is definitely the most significant person that he has faced in his professional career. That's what I posit. I think it's interesting that the stance that he seems to be taking, and I guess a lot of the backlash that he feels that he's been getting, or for the reason why he's been feeling a sense of backlash, is because he doesn't want to particularly acknowledge that fact that EJ is his most significant opponent. I don't think logically that's something that he is able to digest for himself. And resume-wise, and this is not saying that, the outcome didn't happen. We already know what the outcome was. Yes, he completely washed Earl Spence in the first fight. But I think psychologically that still messes with his psyche on some level. He doesn't like to acknowledge that. And he doesn't like that people are upholding a sense of value for Earl Spence. Even the doubters of Earl Spence are saying, listen, when's the rematch? You know what I mean? Even if people weren't necessarily gung-ho about it initially because of how EJ lost, and it seemed to be, a walk in the park for him, people are still quite curious about the outcome of the rematch. Should it take place at 150? We got questions. Should it take place at 154? Is EJ going to be healthy? Are there going to be issues of what we know now as the cataract surgery that he had, the possible broken rib, the possible weight drain, and all these other issues and speculations that we've been carrying since the July fight? People want to know, can we see a healthy Spence in this rematch? And if we do, will the results be different? And people are curious about that, whether, you're team AJ or team Bud or both. You know what I'm saying? Boxing fans in general are very curious to see the outcome of this fight. And I think that's something that really messes with his ego for some strange reason, because he seems to just want to be credited as the man who beat him. And he's not necessarily excited about having to prove it again. That's what it seems like to me. He doesn't seem like he feels like he has anything to prove. It's almost like, well, I did this already, you see? You know what I mean? But it's like, okay, it's like playing a game of 3-card Monte. You take a risk on the first one. Yeah, you get it correct or something like that. Well, can you do it again? Let's see. You know what I mean? Especially considering that it was a serious gamble if we're going to posit that there was something, going on a subterranean level, on an unknown level, at least to the public. We didn't know what was happening with EJ until the aftermath of the bout. And he just does not seem interested at all in having to prove himself again. I think he has a sense of comfortability with having that crown and having that accomplishment, being the only man to beat EJ, put him down, stop him. Nobody put hands on EJ like that. EJ's never lost a fight in his professional career ever. And he was the man to do that, and he's kind of riding the wave. I think it's more ego. And I'm not saying this with any resentment or hate to Bud. I like Bud. I think he's a phenomenal, fantastic fighter. And I say this with the utmost respect and interest in seeing, what would happen. But I do give him his credit for the first fight, but that doesn't mean that I'm not interested in seeing, both of them healthy and coming to the table at their best. But I don't think Crawford is particularly interested in having to prove himself again. I don't know if that's because he has a sense of comfort where he's at. He doesn't want to have to prove it again, and so he's passing off other factors as excuses. Ironically enough, he's saying also that, one of the things that he said recently on his Twitter was that, he's heard all the excuses, basically insinuating that EJ sharing, the fact that he had the cataract or retina surgery, the fact that he also stated that it was definitely a factor that in the fight, that affected his vision. I think that he's saying and alluding to the fact that because EJ is sharing this information, that basically he's using it as an alibi. It's something of an excuse. And I don't know. Crawford is, I don't know which way I'm leaning with that. I can't say that I'm really feeling it. That's what I do know. I can't say that I'm really feeling it. And you know why? It's because with this matchup being his most pivotal in his career, I do not understand why he is so desultory about becoming a possible 3-time world champion. You think that there'd be more enthusiasm, some zeal, some verve in him regarding that possibility? Like, wouldn't that get you up? Like, yo, I'm going to do this. Like, EJ, upon, prior to getting this fight made, was so amped up that he wanted to fight no other fighter. He didn't care what measures had to be taken. He didn't care how long he had to stay out of the ring. He literally wanted no one but Bud. Bud was it. He didn't want to see nobody else but Bud. He didn't want to hear about nobody else but Bud. He didn't want to face anybody in the ring but Bud. Bud was it. And so he really went above and beyond. And I say that lightly because the things that this man had sacrificed as the A side of that fight to get this fight made against Bud was something just unparalleled and completely unexpected from who you would consider the A side in the fight. Giving this man all types of leeway, all types of leisure. It was absolutely insanity. The things he managed to lay down for, and sacrifice for. He put a lot of things that were in his hands naturally as the A side down and just completely relinquished it, so that it could be more pliable and agreeable to Crawford so that he'd accept the fight. It wasn't enough for Crawford to, say, okay, this is the biggest fight of my life. No, he wanted all these types of, amendments, made to the contract. He wanted all types of, little stipulations, little trigger things that were absolutely, very, very picky and undeserving, might I add. But EJ gave it up because he really wanted the fight to be made. And it's because of EJ and EJ alone that we have that fight, because of the sacrifices that he made to get Crawford on board. That's the type of energy that I'm interested in, because at the end of the day, why EJ did that was because he wanted what? The best to fight the best. He was the best, and he considered Crawford to be one of the best. He did what he had to do to get that fight made. Where is Crawford's tenacity? Where is his vigor and his zeal? There is no verve whatsoever in this man. And he has a lot to gain. He can become a 3-time champion, undisputed champion, and a 3-time and a 3-division undisputed champion at that. So you would think that this would encourage and foster some type of zeal and gusto to get this done, but he just does not seem to have it whatsoever. He's talking about taking vacations all year. He's talking about, I got one more fight and you guys don't appreciate me. Is Crawford being a diva? Let's look at this. Is Crawford being a diva? Or is he being lazy? Does he think, he got it good enough? I don't know. I really don't know. There are more complaints than there is an angst to make it happen. There's no zhuzh, as they would say. No zhuzh whatsoever. There's no get up for this whatsoever. He doesn't seem like he wants to fight the best, And when people bring in a sidebar and a side note and say, okay, well, let's say you don't want to fight EJ for whatever reason, which is absolutely absurd. But okay, let's say in a hypothetical scenario, you didn't fight EJ. Why don't you fight Boots? Boots is definitely another one of the best in at least in 147. You know what I'm saying? Are you going to stay at 147? Are you going to move to 54? Okay, let's say you don't want to fight EJ at 54. You're going to stay at 47 and keep those belts. We'll fight the motherfucking king at the next in line after you, which is Boots. This nigga's talking about, oh no, Boots is still fighting in theaters. He's basically secondary. What am I going to fight him for? Okay, well, what the hell are you doing? What are we talking about here? Are you interested in legacy? Didn't you say this is the Terence Crawford-Era? Well, you gotta do it. You gotta prove it by doing it. You don't just get to say it. You gotta prove it. Yes, you beat the number one guy at 147. Okay, there's a rematch clause. You knew that before the fight even commenced. So, why are you backing down? Why are you backing down? And then you back down, and then you got an option over here that you also saying you don't want. What's really good with you? I don't understand. I don't understand the repose. It's too much repose going on. It doesn't make sense. And it's too much complaining and less action being made to show and prove why this is the Crawford-Era. Show it, King, because I support it. I'm with you if that's what it is. But show me. Show me and show me again. You showed me with Spence. Okay, things later came out that he wasn't 100%. Goddamn, I got to say old school style. Stevie Wonder could see that wasn't EJ's 100%. Okay, we know that now. Okay, show it again. Wouldn't you want him to be healthy so that you could put his ass in the dirt? Turn his catchphrase around on him. Fry some more fish. But let's get the work done if that's the case. Don't be sitting up here complaining and getting too comfortable and, with the lemonade in hand with the pinky out. Like, I don't understand. There's too much tarrying and too much lag happening as far as his energy is concerned. He's not showing any interest in this fight. And it's looking like he's not interested in fighting the best. I don't know what he's interested in. Apparently, he's interested in taking some trips. And if that's the case, sign me out, sign me off. I'm done with that. I don't play with that. I don't understand why you wouldn't want to take EJ and put the nail in the coffin for him, especially after there were so many questions surrounding his state of health the first time. If he comes back, he's recovering and doing what he has to do. People want to see, what will be done when he's in tip-top, when there are no excuses on the table, when he's in tip-top shape, as near to it as possible or nearer to it than he was in the previous fight, in the initial fight. You got to show and prove that no matter what condition EJ is in, you got to say he'll be decimated each time. Where's that heart? That's the fire that I'm looking for. Like, all right, get together. Go ahead, get your eye surgery. Make sure your motherfucking rib is popped back in place. Make sure your pinky toes are clipped. Make sure you eat some home-cooked food. Nigga, get in the best shape of, get in the best mood, the best shape, the best condition of your life, because I'm going to put you under the ground. That's the type of shit that I want to see from you. I want to hear that from you. Like, all right, nigga, get it together, because I'm going to break you in half again. Like, where's that? That's the type of talk that should be had right now. It's very strange to me. But yeah, that's my take on that. We'll see what's in the lineup for Bud as far as his next moves, and if this rematch is something that can actually materialize and concretize. I hope that it does. It's definitely worth it for this fight to be reified, and I'm definitely interested in it. It's definitely still one of the biggest fights in boxing, even though the first outcome was so devastating. Put all of us and the critics and just the boxing fans in general, people who love the sport in general, put us to shame. Show us, that you really, really the king of this, and no matter who steps in front of you, you're gonna come out victorious every time. That's what I want to see. I have no problem watching you shine. I think you're definitely one of the kings in the entire sport. But I want to see you at your best, and I just don't feel that this particular energy is giving me a luster as a fan of yours, particularly as a fan of Crawford. So we'll see what happens, y'all. On to the next. Peace.